to go look for your message.
Or you can just add it to the calendar invite as the location. You can put the link in there, and then it's just clickable, and you just go in.
Okay, I think we're live on YouTube. It says that we're streaming live.
So, Chuck, what do you think of John in space today?
I like it. Here, I'll be in space too.
You're almost in space.
It's funny because the way that the filtering works, it makes my microphone part of the background. So if I move behind it,
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. You can like hide. You have a cloaking device.
yeah, you can hear me talking, but you can't see my lips moving.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. I'm actually working on putting a green screen behind me so that I can have it more gooder.
Do I look better this way?
I love it.
Oh gosh. This is what we do. This is why our businesses are not why we don't have businesses.
Yeah. So I messed up my team.
Oh no.
They got a week ahead on releases,
Ah.
and then I signed a sponsor for next week.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I had, they're like, okay, we'll go add all that back into all the shows because they sponsored like 6 shows.
Oh man.
Yeah, I closed about $60,000 in ad sales this week.
Damn.
Oh wow.
Nice.
Damn. That's good. Nice job.
I mean, 3/4 of that was a renewal that I just emailed them and said, I'm renewing. Here's the invoice. And they said, okay.
Yeah.
The original version sounded better.
But yeah, I've got a handful of other companies that I'm pulling in. And then I had one company that came back and said, we want to renew for this spot. And I said, oh, that spot's gone now because Century renewed for it. And I'm like, oh.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah. So yeah, we're getting them into the next spot, and they're probably going to pick up another show. So
Nice. That's good. What are you looking at right now as far as like total bill per, let's say, I don't know, per quarter? Like, because you do it mostly on a quarter basis, right? Like, what's your total sales now for quarter for media?
What do you mean? Like, how much am I bringing in per quarter for sponsorships?
Yeah. Yep.
I should look at that. I know that I really want to basically, over the next month or so, I want to bring in another $100,000 to $150,000, because that would put us in a really, really good place where I'd actually be able to build in a little bit more of a cushion than what we have.
I'm just curious what the quarterly like bill is that you can
total inventory is.
Oh, total inventory? Is that what you're asking me?
Well, what you're selling of your total inventory? Like, what is your? Because you're bringing in deals, but they're at different length of time. But like, do you know what your monthly revenue is from, just from the podcast advertising sales, or quarterly?
Quarterly, it's probably in the ballpark of 100,000 per quarter.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Maybe a little bit less than that. It's definitely north of 60 and probably a little south of 100.
That'd probably be a good thing for you to track, is probably on a quarterly basis, not on a monthly. I would track it on a quarterly basis to see what your quarter over quarter improvement is in your, because that's going to get like that when you start projecting that out. In fact, if you could retroactively go backwards and calculate those, what it has been for like the last 2 or 3 years, that'll probably give you a nice little chart that will give you a good idea of what you can kind of expect revenue.
Yeah, that's true. One other thing though that I've also figured out and this is, I feel a little bit dumb saying it, and I guess I had to just kind of have it hit me in the head a couple of times. But yeah, my primary job here is the sponsorship sales.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm really just buckling down, and it's funny because I was like, my goal is to get 20 new prospects in the pipeline every week. And now it's just, you know what? I'm blocking out this time and I'm going to get as many as I can. And so, I wind up doing a lot of the other stuff. I mean, I had to go last night and fix the iTunes category stuff because iTunes changed their categories. And, so I've had a few other things that I've had to do like that. But yeah, for the most part, it's, I've got to be out there and I've got to be working the system to get more people in. So, yeah, so I'm working on that. But yeah, it looks like things are starting to tick back up as far as sales go and looking really good. So yeah, I'm just chasing as many of these as I can. I really do want to make a video series on how to sponsor podcasts to reach developers and put that up. And then I go back to all of the people that are in the pipeline. I've got a couple hundred companies in the pipeline, that I reached out to cold or that came to me or whatever that never quite closed, and just go back and say, look, these are usually the reasons why, people hesitate to sponsor the podcast. So look, here's how you get the ROI. So let's do it. Let's make it pay for it itself for you. And let's get her done.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Then you can re-engage those prospects.
Yeah.
And then also, like, you're in a unique position where you can say that, I mean, literally you have more experience than probably anyone in the world in running ads on developer podcasts, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's anyone else in the world that has more experience, right? I mean, that's like a pretty unique bragging point that you can make, is that if anyone knows about this, you do. Because I mean, there's a lot of developer podcasts, but I don't think there's anyone that has as large of a number that you do.
No, not even close.
Yeah.
The next biggest developer podcast networks have between 6 and maybe 10, might be the highest.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other tech podcast networks, but that's not the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, so I broke my team. They were all proud of themselves because they were a week ahead.
That's what you get for no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I came in, Leroy Jenkins. No, it worked out well. They're like, okay, well, get us the stuff. And yeah, anyway.
So we have a simple programmer announcement.
All right.
I am buying back Josh's share in Simple Programmer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're gonna, this way Josh can do his thing, and it just seemed like it'd be the best decision for both of us, because
Wow.
so yep, so it'll be,
You guys already figured out the terms and conditions for it?
yeah.
Mostly,
I'm
yeah.
guessing it was probably already most of it was in the partnership agreement you agreed to in the first place, right?
We're not that smart.
No, it wasn't. I think it was just kind of trying to be fair on both sides.
That makes sense.
Not super difficult.
When does this go into effect?
Pretty soon. Right? I mean, but yeah, we haven't picked a date yet, but we're gonna do a short transition, and so it'll probably be next couple of weeks.
Wow. That's really quick. That's
Yeah.
damn.
Of course, why mess around with it? Yeah, just get it done.
Yeah.
Damn.
Unless you had some reason, some project in the works that you had to.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the project was kind of what precipitated it, really, because John's gearing up to work on this course and just got us talking about like how committed we both are to this. And I've got some client work on the side that's been going really well, and I'd like to focus more on that. And so and the course launch, I honestly think that this course launch that we were working on is the best move that we could be doing right now. For me, it was like I wasn't really wanting to commit to like, okay, if this doesn't look like a hit out of the gate, like, am I going to spend the next several years trying to make this work?
Yeah.
And I just wasn't sure I wanted to do that.
Yeah, it makes sense. So what are you going to do then, Josh?
So I've been doing is doing retainer-based client work, generating high value B2B leads through cold email outreach. And it's been going really well. I'm really enjoying it. It's nice because I can hit the ground running with a client and deliver value really quickly.
Right.
Nice.
So
are you going to be starting like a overall email marketing consulting service? Is that the plan?
Well, I'm working with, I'm kind of like white labeling with somebody right now. And then I might spin off and do some of my own as well. But for right now, I'm just going to work with this other group
Do you want some email marketing work from other people? And how much of a commission can I get when I send you that work?
At the moment, no. I mean, I've been turning away a lot of. I get at least one or two pretty solid leads a month that I've been turning away. So I had a guy just like a couple weeks ago he's like a New York Times bestselling author, and he's doing a big book launch and stuff. And I'd rather focus on this other thing that I've got going. So.
That's not bad. I mean, that guy would probably need all the help with sales page and emails and webinars and all the things he's trying to sell on the back end of that shit. If he understands the power of email marketing, he probably understands everything.
Yeah. That
goes in promoting the back end of it. What's his name? John Sonmez? Was he a Wall Street Journal bestseller?
So, but yeah, that's the plan for right now. What I'm liking about this is that it's retainer based. So, there's some initial setup work, and then it's maintenance after that.
Yeah.
It's interesting
for the client. So.
Yeah, but the thing that's nice there too is that as long as you're delivering value, they'll keep paying you. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Will you still be an Entrepreneur?
I don't know. I'm kind of thinking I might be bowing out here shortly, so I'm still considering.
Damn, man, that is very fast.
I'm sorry that John broke Josh.
I wouldn't say that.
He's got his new Astro Love.
I know, right?
Late night television commercial going on, so he knows that'll make money.
Yeah. So I guess the other question is then, what happens with you, John? Because Josh has been writing a lot of the emails that go out and doing a lot of the other day-to-day stuff. So do you just take that back over?
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't completely decided exactly how I'm going to do it. But right now we have a problem that a lot of our revenue is coming from affiliate deals. So there's a couple things I could do. I mean, with some of our existing relationships and some of the emails that Josh has already created for the campaigns, it's not a huge amount. Like, it's maybe like a few days of work to really get it set up to do an affiliate deal each month, but they have to be in the pipeline, and there's, so I might potentially, I have to continue that for now until I get the course launch. Once I get the course launch, then I'll probably severely cut the affiliate deals down, if not eliminate them completely, depending on how that works. And then, so for now, I mean, I can write the emails and do that stuff. But I may potentially hire an affiliate manager and someone who has some email marketing skills, and then can find affiliate deals and run them, and possibly just pay them on commission is what might make the most sense. Because Josh, we were just talking about this, and Josh was like, well, we've got a pretty good track record, so hiring someone for commission is pretty, which makes sense. I think that would be a good, it's just a trouble of finding a good person. But if they're good and I can hire them on commission, then I can just have them just do that while I'm focused on the course stuff. I just want to make sure I'm not too much. Like right now, what I did was Bulldog Mindset.
I think I have someone in mind.
Oh,
Josh. You split, but then you hire them back for this work. It's really good. I mean, commission-based work, it's the same thing, right? It's not any difference.
That's true. I don't know if Josh would want to be involved.
Why not? I mean, it makes total sense because Josh doesn't have to be involved with like the day-to-day operations and like the way he would want to do things, but his sweet spot is marketing and email and all that stuff. And
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, as long as it makes sense for both of you.
That's up to you, Josh. I would be okay with that. But
I'll have to think about it.
yeah, maybe we can. When we talk about the transition plan, we can
Yeah.
that and see if you.
Oh, I was hoping for a public negotiation.
But yeah, are you guys gonna like maybe both of you tell us some of your key learnings? Because this is pretty interesting. How long has it been? What's been the run like, and what did you learn?
How acrimonious is this divorce?
Yeah.
When did we first team up on Simple Programmer?
It was the fall of 2015.
I was going to say it was.
Wow, so
it's been a few years.
Wow, 4 years.
And then Josh became a full partner in the company. Like, what is it, like
2017, mid.
Yeah, so 2 years, and so it's been about.
Yeah, it would have been nice if John had given him some voting stock, but.
Yeah, so I guess individually, what are your lessons? Like, what are your lessons, John? And then maybe we'll talk to Josh as what his lessons are.
Well, I mean, there's definitely some things that we did screw up. Like Chuck caught right onto it from the very beginning, which was that we didn't have a buy-sell agreement.
Yeah.
Beginning. So It was kind of a weird situation because it's like, what if you've got a few different scenarios that can happen. One is one partner doesn't want to do the business anymore or doesn't want to work, just wants to take the passive part, or the other one does, or both do, or both don't, right? It's like all those scenarios you kind of have to deal with.
Right.
And I think there were some assumptions, right? Because coming into the business, like bringing Josh on, part of the whole idea of doing it, and the reason why I'd give away 50% of the business was because I didn't want to work on it anymore. I wanted but I think with that same assumption that Josh had was that, I'll run the business, but we're going to keep on growing. And then we'll get to the point where we can both kind of be passive on it. But what ended up happening was, everything that we foresaw for that made sense until like last year when things stalled out and Josh was doing everything that he could to do it, but nothing was happening. And so then it was like, okay, now we're in a big fucking dilemma because I either have to come back in and we got to bring John back and use my name and branding again and have me build courses, or like we're just going to it's just going to go downhill, or Josh has to try and scramble for, to try to figure out how some other way to raise revenue. And so I think that is the big issue, or just learning is like, if you're going to do some kind of partnership like this, you got to figure out, you got to look at every single possible bad scenario. I mean, there was all kinds of other things that could have hit us as well that we didn't encounter. For what if one of us gets a divorce? What if one of us dies? What if all of these things? It's like you could be in business with someone's spouse.
I've had a few friends that have dealt with that exact scenario where either their business partner died or they got a divorce, and in the settlement the judge basically gave part of the company to the ex-spouse, and then all of a sudden you have a business partner that you didn't sign up for.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, but as far as personal learning, just from a business owner perspective, I mean, rather than us doing this and then dissolving this, I'm, as a business owner, just myself, I probably would have been in a better position if I had, instead of giving up ownership in the company, either doing a royalty based off of work, right? Something like that. Or just pay a lot more money, right? So instead of whatever, Josh was being paid as a contractor, and just pay a lot more money where it'd be worth it for him to keep on consulting for me, so that didn't have this kind of issue. Because I think when you're, I don't know. I think in any way, unless you have three partners, things. I mean, luckily Josh and I get along, and we're both like reasonable people. Neither one of us is totally insane. So so we didn't have the problems that I think some other people might have had in this situation. But like just seeing how like two people like us that are friends that get along, that have been getting along for a long time, just the kind of trouble that we've navigated, to me, I realized that, wow, if I were in business with someone else who wasn't Josh, who wasn't someone who was honest and had integrity that I could trust, I could be really fucked. Like it could really go bad, right? Regardless of how good, like you should never start a business relationship thinking, okay, well, things are going good from a business perspective, so that makes sense to do it like as far as a partnership. So those kind of things, like as I'm looking back, I'm thinking is like, stuff like that. Or even if you do like a partnership type of thing, I think you should probably have 3 partners instead of 2, right? Like just because then you're avoiding some of those.
You have a tiebreaker essentially.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's my big learning is that like, don't, if you are going to give up equity in a business, make sure you have like everything figured out, buy sell agreements and whatnot, and you've
So what
looked at
kind of
all the
agreements did you guys put in place? Did you talk to a lawyer, or you guys just put an LLC together and that's it?
We did have our agreement was more around leading up to the partnership. We didn't
how
have
things vest and all that stuff.
Yeah, we had a contract. We actually paid a lawyer for that. We had a contract and everything. And then we didn't have anything in place for after.
Oh, so for the business partnership itself, there was no no lawyer drawing out anything.
Yeah.
But
We talked through. I mean, like I think we did a great job planning out the original agreement.
Yeah, we did.
Like we were really thorough about that, but then it was just sort of like, and it was kind of weird because like what happened, I mean, the timeline was like, I vested I hit all the milestones in like July. I think it was June or July of 2017. We did the book launch, and then John was like gone for a month, like in Europe, I think. And then we kind of never really got anything going too much after that.
Yeah.
And then in January, John was just like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. So it was kind of like, we kind of like hit the goal and then never had like all right, next steps kind of discussion.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it actually eliminated incentives for both of us when we hit the goal, because not only was Josh trying to hit the goal so that he could gain ownership of the company, but I was trying to hit the goal so he could gain ownership of the company because I wanted him to succeed. And once we hit it, then we're like, okay, we did it, right? Now we're partners in the company. And then we didn't have really the carrot.
The next level.
Yeah, because I mean, the next level was like, it's now, okay, we make more money and then we split the money that we make. That's more money. But it's not as much of a motivator as you've only got something to gain. You don't have something to lose. Right.
Yeah.
It's sort of like when we were in that mode, we like had to make this work. We had timeline, it's like we had something to lose. So I think that's part of it. But yeah, we did do a good job of figuring out the whole, the vesting schedule and everything.
So in some ways, it would have been better if you had found a high quality lawyer who has done business kind of buyouts and mergers and all of like stuff like that, like partnerships and written contracts on those, and you would have sit with that person because he would have asked you all these contingency questions that you failed to ask yourself because he has probably seen this shit hundreds of times. So it'd be like, okay, what happens in this? How do you incentivize? What happens in the case this happens? What happens in the case and write out the whole contract that way, right?
Well, part of it too is that we were trying not to spend like ridiculous amounts on lawyer fees on.
Yeah, but
and at that point, remember the business revenue wasn't super high like it is now. So we but yeah, I mean, still, you're right. Like it still would make sense.
Like that's one of the most important decisions you can make in the business, and that's one area you would not shy away from spending money. In retrospect.
Yeah.
Right. Of all,
I'm just glad that you've talked me out of taking a partner.
Oh, it's interesting too. I mean, just thinking about it, like I said, I mean, doing business with Josh is great because he's got integrity. I can trust him, and not. But one thing, just that, like, I was just thinking about, like, as a business owner that gives up equity in a company, and especially if there's only two partners instead of three, is that when you give up equity, right, and your company is based off of distributions, then essentially, like, there's no way that unless you have a buy sell agreement, right, there's no way you could compel someone to continue to work, right, if they don't want to. Not that Josh wasn't doing it, I mean, but you see what I'm saying? It's like,
Right.
you now have, they essentially have a passive stake in the company, which is great if, like, what we had intended with Simple Programmer was eventually to make it passive, but we got to this point where it had to be active. And we can find that, we wanted to get to 100K a month passive income where we could both kind of just, 4-hour work week it. But as a business owner, that's a really important thing to consider, is like, okay, if you're going to give up equity in the company, how could you even possibly, like, what can you do to prevent, if you do have someone, again, not saying that Josh was doing this, but just in general, like, what do you do to prevent someone from just keeping their ownership and saying, okay, well, just give me 20% of the profits or whatever it is, and they're not doing anything at that point. Like, you've got to have, those are things to really think out very, very carefully.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is not easy in any way, shape, or form. What about you, Josh? What are your learnings?
I think my biggest one is about, like, passion. So I think, like, I think this would be, like, John, and this is not critical of John, like, John's moved on from this.
I love it how both of you guys are like, this is not really about Josh or about John, but it is. So let me just tell you.
Here's the thing you need to know about John and what a big asshole he is.
Oh my gosh, no, it's like, it's, if you're going to do a partnership, really, I think one thing that was tricky was that we're both in very different situations in our lives, right? So John, like, for me, I needed this is, like, basically all I had, right? And John didn't need it. And but on the other hand, John, like, really wanted, like, like we talked about for all the work we did together, John was really pulling for me, and I really appreciated that, and appreciate that. But yeah, so that mismatch made things hard, because for John, it's like, I think for John, it's a little bit more of a legacy. Like, he's built this community, and he really wants to see it continue, and the mission continue. And I believe in that too. I feel like actually a lot of my successes from when I started into software development is from the same kind of ideas. But just that the mismatch in where we are, like, in life stage wise, made things, that's one thing. So, and then just the fact that John's passion has kind of moved on, also made it really hard. Cause, like, I think if he was still excited about this, like, I really like working with John. And if John was still excited about this, I think that I would be all on board. So, like, I don't know that I really want to do, I'm not sure that I really want to do partnership again. But if I did, I think it would be kind of like with somebody who's more in a similar life stage with me, and who's, like, hell-bent on, they like just this one thing and obsessed with it. Because I think I've seen this multiple times now, where I think that it's really hard. Like, the entrepreneur, it's not really possible to replace the founder.
In a business like this, in a lifestyle business like this.
Yeah. I mean,
if people are coming for the founder, then yes, it makes it hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen people. So I've not even, like, outside of this situation, I've seen people where they tried to start a business with the founder removed almost. And they were just trying to hire, skills. And it's just, I mean, maybe it works once in a while, but it's really, really difficult. It's really, really difficult and rare, I think, to make that work.
Yeah, I mean, lifestyle businesses like this have this challenge of the founder makes it or breaks it. And I think if you design a business that doesn't need a founder story, then it's a much better scalable, sellable business when anyone can enter and work it to a higher level. But business like this, it's hard to enter and change it, especially if the founder is not as involved. So
yeah. Well, and I think John's success with Bulldog Mindset kind of illustrate, it kind of shows the difference, because he's more involved there, more his face, and presence is more felt there. And, that's grown pretty quickly.
Yeah. So are you saying like the passion part, that thing you said about being in the same stage, this is something I've heard again and again now. Do you guys ever listen to Build to Sell podcast? That's basically by the guy who wrote the book Build to Sell, John Vardo, and he interviews different people.
I haven't heard
and it's a really good podcast. He talks about all the business owners who are exiting their businesses for large sums, like hundreds of millions, tens of millions of dollars. And the consistent story that I've seen when there are multiple partners is that it was crucial that they were both on the same life stage, exactly the way Josh described it. Like they're basically they both saw the same things in terms of what they wanted. Not just
you want to get the same
vision
things out of it. Yeah,
not just the vision of the business, but what you personally wanted. So if one person says business as like, oh, as Josh was saying, like for Josh, this was the only thing he wanted to, and for John, it was like one of the many things. So that changes the game dramatically because Josh wants it to be a $10 million business and work that rather than, keep it a lifestyle business or something like that. Or it could be the other way around, but that consistency is crucial. Otherwise, you get in trouble pretty quickly with different visions or different personal interests.
Well, I think the other thing too that I've heard from both John and Josh is that they had this idea of where it was going to end up, and it just didn't meet up with expectations. And so what it sounds like is then their approaches to it were different, and the things that they were trying to get out of it, because it didn't live up to that exact expectation where they were both going to get what they wanted, then they had to have the hard conversation of, okay, I'm not getting what I want because I need this or I want this. And, and then the other comes in and says, yeah, I'm not getting what I want either because I was looking more for this. And so you come in thinking it's going to go one way, and then you realize that the way that it went isn't working. And so, so then what do you do? And you've got to have, it's okay. I don't, do we kind of push it all back, and let John buy Josh out? Or is there an approach where we can both get what we want? And I'm sure that all this conversation happened, and where they wound up was, well, it sounds like the most solid plan that gets both of them closer to what they want is, for Josh to be able to exit and go do something else that's going to give him what he wants in another way. And John can turn Simple Programmer, in a direction that gives him whatever fulfillment he's looking for.
Would you have bought out John?
A year ago, probably. Now, no, I don't think so. Because a year ago, I was still thinking that it looked, I felt like I had a lot of things to try, that I had a lot of ideas about how I could try to start to shift it. And if any one of those things had shown any signs of life, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. it's just, you know, I mean, there were a lot of different angles, but just it's a big, I mean, it's definitely, it's a classically difficult problem of turning a personality business into something else. Like that is
almost impossible.
Definitely universally acknowledged to be a difficult road to hoe.
By the way, guys, Dan Kennedy is on his deathbed. You probably know that. Some of you know that.
Actually died. Yeah. So this is actually just quick aside. I've been kind of, I'm sad about it because I really like Dan, but it's also like Dan has managed to turn his death into like this viral, curiosity-provoking incident. Because he wrote a letter saying, "I'm announcing my own death," but he wasn't dead.
Oh.
And he posted it under a tribute to Dan Kennedy, and it was basically him handing off. He's appointed someone to his organization to kind of run things, and he was handing a baton off in this letter, but he wasn't dead yet. And then people started saying he was dead, but he was in hospice. He's in hospice. In hospice, he may or may not have died at this point. But people are like, it's like this big thing on all the marketing forums, like, he's dead. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's dead. No, he's not.
Damn, man. Learned a lot from Dan Kennedy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how did you guys evaluate the company?
We looked at the revenue basically for the last year. Like Josh came up with the initial analysis of what the revenue was for the last year, and then a 1.25
multiple
multiplier. And then I made a slight modification to say that, well, you know, a lot of the revenue was spiky revenue because it was affiliate revenue. And so if you were independently buying the company, you'd kind of toss that out and you'd look at more of the baseline, because that would be stuff that you couldn't count on for the future necessarily. So we slightly based off of that, and then we were pretty damn close. So
we split the difference.
Well,
you guys are not going to tell the numbers publicly, are you?
I'd rather not, but
yeah, probably not. Just
yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah.
I think people are shocked that we're actually going to talk about this in general publicly, so they're already getting the bonus deal. But I think it's important because it's an important learning, right? I mean, this is our journey as entrepreneurs that we've been taking this journey like for how many years has this show been going on? Like 6 years, 7 years, 6 years, right?
So Entreprogrammers was around before Josh was around?
Before we started working together, yeah.
Oh, yeah. When Entreprogrammers first started, Josh was working for Trackabout, and we actually had to not do the shows live because we would say something.
we had a delay so we could bleep out.
We had to deliberately talk our way around Josh quitting his job.
Let me see when the first episode is. Okay, the first episode that we have recorded here is like May of 2014 is what it looks like. So, but we actually started meeting before then. We just started making them public on May 16th, 2014. Damn. So yeah, 5 years, a little over 5 years.
How long had you been doing it before you brought me in?
How long have we been doing it?
Maybe a year.
I think it was a year and change, but I don't remember for sure.
Yeah, it initially started out with me quitting Trackabout, and then to do entrepreneurial stuff. And Josh and I met at Trackabout because we were the two guys that were thinking like entrepreneurial type of things there. So I was trying to sell apps at the time, or doing solar portal site stuff. And Josh, you were doing Iron Condor trading too, I think. Oh yeah.
It was like we'd be pairing, and there'd be like, I'd hear stock market bells going off, and John would be like, wait a second. I'm losing my shirt.
and then Derek was another coworker that we had at Trackabout, and he had quit before then, right? Like he had quit before me, Trackabout, in order to do. I think he was doing his own thing, doing consulting for Backbone JS or something, or
Yeah, he was doing
Yeah,
consulting.
because that's how I knew Derek was from. We'd had him on the show to talk about Marionette and things like that.
Yeah. And then so then what ended up happening was that Josh was still at Trackabout, but he was doing some, like when I left Trackabout, like he was still doing like some trying to build a business on the side. And so I was talking to Josh about it. We were going back and forth, and then Derek and I were also going back and forth on some business stuff. And then we were like, hey, why don't we just all three talk together at the same time about this? So we formed the initial Ultra Programmers, and then we decided to make it public as a podcast to get double mileage out of it. So that was it. And actually at that time, when early on, what happened was Derek actually he started working for Telerik. So he stopped doing the consulting, I think, and took a full-time job. And then shortly after, like, we started Entre Programmers, we were like telling Derek, yeah, you should really quit that job and do your own entrepreneurial thing again, because you know, and we were like giving him a timeline, like, yeah, you know, like after 3 months, like you could transition out of this job and whatnot. And then the very next week on Entre Programmers, he comes on and he's like, I quit my job.
We're like,
why would you do that? Like, so,
yeah, that was pretty memorable.
That sounds like Derek, though.
Yeah.
Just
he was trying to be nice. He's like, oh, I'm gonna go in and give my boss 3 months notice.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I told him specifically, do not do that in the previous episode.
Yeah. Like, and the boss was like, how about I give you no notice? How about you go get your stuff and put it in the cardboard box?
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I kept on telling him, I was like, who wants someone that you know is going to be gone in 3 months, that you're going to pay them for 3 months, but they're not going to do any work? Because who's going to do work when they're you know what I mean? It's like, you're just going to, that's basically what you're telling them when you say that. It's like, you're going to pay me for 3 months and I'm not going to do shit. Like, no, they're just going to be like, okay, well, here's a box, get out of here. Like,
usually the only reason why you would keep a person around is if you want to transition and they had stuff that you wanted, but otherwise you're like, I don't need you. Get out of here.
That's why you give 2 weeks notice. Like, you know, but anyway, it's funny. So yeah, we've had quite a journey on Entre Programmers and learning.
Yep.
Stuff, man. I'm surprised it went down in a episode's time.
What's that?
Yeah.
It all went down within one episode.
Oh yeah.
Like last week, you guys were talking about doing your weekly mastermind call, and you stopped the call early because you're like, no, we're getting on the call, or not weekly mastermind, but weekly strategy call.
Yeah.
And this is the outcome of the strategy call? Is that what you're telling me?
No, this all happened yesterday.
We work faster than that, man.
That's fucked up. That's good though. It is good. I mean, speed of implementation is crucial.
Well, if you know that's the direction you're heading, then why
wait around?
Yeah, why mess with it?
Yeah. Yeah, we had a discussion yesterday and we came to different conclusions than what we have now, but I think both of us thought about it afterwards, and there was a lot of things that it was like, what if this happens? What's going to happen here? And and one of the big things for me was I was like, shit, like if I'm running this company, what I'd really like to do is not pay us money, and instead spend that money to invest in the company to save it.
Right.
And that's definitely not something that Josh is going to want to do, because he's depending on that income. So that, I think, to me, that was one of the things that I realized. I was like, okay, like if I'm thinking what is the best thing that I could possibly do for this company, it's going to be to redirect that revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and for me, I realized like I was like, okay, so what I'm saying here is, John, I want you to spend the next 3 months, will do, spend all your time working on this course, but I'm holding my foot in the door.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't work out, so I'm kind of like asking John to take all, essentially
All
a
the
lot of
risk for the product. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was going to do, there was a lot in it for me to do too, but in terms of long-term plans, it was basically John was taking all the risk, and so that didn't seem fair when I spent some time reflecting.
Mm. Mm.
This is a breakup. Take it for all it's worth.
Yeah, enjoy it or mourn it.
Yeah.
Go to
I'm
Vegas.
Wear his shirts around the house and eat ice cream and cry.
I mean, are you guys gonna throw a party in Vegas or something so we can both join, Chuck and I?
Wait, there's a party?
Yeah, exactly, Chuck. We're invited.
That's right. I like the way you work, Manny. You invite me to all kinds of things.
I've tried to, man.
And then you get John to pay for it.
That's the objective. I don't know if he's ready for that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, John? We're ready for that?
I'm gonna have to get down to work pretty soon here. Like,
Oh, John has to do actual work now.
yeah, John has to do actual work now.
What a concept.
Yeah,
That's
it'll be
just weird.
because I'm gonna have to figure out how to run both businesses. And I mean, I got Bulldog Mindset down to the point where I'm really focusing on it 1 day a week, so that'll leave me more time. But yeah, I'll have to figure out some stuff.
By the way, if you want to give another attendee talk at MicroConf, this might be a good one.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a good. The only problem is they moved MicroConf next year to Minnesota,
Yes, they did.
so I will not be attending MicroConf.
Why?
I'm not really like keen on going to Minnesota. Like
Everybody.
you would have at least picked. It didn't have to be Vegas, but if it's some other location that is not Minnesota,
No, I hear you. I've been to Minneapolis a couple of times, and yeah, there's not really a whole lot there to do.
yeah. I'll give a virtual attendee talk.
There you go.
From your green screen.
Yeah.
Do you have a green screen, or is it just doing the automatic?
No, it's a green screen.
It's actual. Yeah, it's an actual.
Oh,
green screen.
okay,
It's a fold-up green screen. It's actually pretty cool. Like,
nice.
actually, here, let me see if I can turn this off, and I'll show you.
Yeah, you just turn off the background thing.
None. There we go.
Yep.
But yeah, it's like
Collapses down.
Oh, nice.
my
Did you hit your
microphone's
boom
still-
mic?
He broke
it's
it.
Attached to the screen, John?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
attached it to the-
Oh, cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Was the mic actually behind you then instead of in front of you?
It's behind me for the recording. Right now, I'm using the Rode though.
Right.
The other Rode.
Yeah.
This podcast mic. This one, right? You guys are,
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the one.
So. But no, it works. The only problem with it is that for standing, it doesn't work so well because it's not tall enough. Like, I think I could actually change the camera. I think Rodrigo's wrong about that, Josh. I think if I had a different angle lens, that I would be able to fit it in
Yes.
because this one is too wide angled.
Yeah, the narrower lens. You just need to get a little bit more distance. That might be the killer on that. If you could get far enough back from the camera, you could zoom it in. And honestly, I think it might look better. You'd look more, closer to the camera and more present.
Right.
Versus being the wide angle. The wide angle tends to minimize whatever's in the middle. Looks small. If you look at a wide angle image, the outer edges get stretched.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yep. So yeah, I think there's some things I could do to play with it, but yeah, it does only go up to like 6 foot something. So if I'm standing directly against it, I'm taller than it, or my head goes just above it. And then if I put it backwards, right, then it's even worse, right? Because now the thing, so that,
Right.
so what I had to do was put it on top of my desk, so it was raised up, so it's higher,
right.
but the sides were not long enough, right, out this way, then you would see the edges. So
Yeah. It's not John Sonmez sized.
no, but like I said, the reason why you'd see the edges with the standing was probably the wide angle lens. If I
Yeah.
had a shorter angle, then
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, I have, like I said, I have a green screen like I have the cloth. And I figured out while I was at Podcast Movement that I bought more hardware than I needed for the podcasting booth, because people are starting to ask me to bring that out. And I'm finding that it's a terrific way to get in with sponsors, because I can interview them and then they want to know when the interview is coming out and all that stuff. And so then I start having conversations with them, and then they're more than happy to connect me with their marketing people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought 9 doors because I just got interior doors. They're hollow core, and so they block some sound. They don't block all the sound. But yeah, I have 3 more than I need because I went and looked at the booth again at Podcast Movement that Buzzsprout has. And so I think I'm just going to put my green screen on that and then just stand it up behind me, and then just get a light here that backlights it. Yeah, and then I can do that. And then I'm also thinking about with my kids when we do the podcasts, I think I'm just going to hook everything up. So I'm just going to put the other mic on the mixer that this mic's going to, and then just feed it all through Zoom and just stream it to YouTube and just do it that way. And that way, because we're talking Star Wars and Harry Potter and stuff, and so I can get some Star Wars and Harry Potter images and stuff and put it on the green screen behind us and have some fun with that.
Nice.
But yeah, it's funny that you have one because I was literally talking about it this morning.
Yeah, I mean, I would, if like, because I was thinking about this. Like, I mean, you can, the collapsible one, I think is nice. The other thing I was thinking about was a pull down one from the top that pulls down. That's another potential.
That might be, it lets you get one that's wider too.
Yeah. The only problem with that is it's like, yeah, you have to find kind of and then you got to install it. And I was like, I need to get the course. Like, by the time I get the damn green screen installed, like waste another 2 weeks. So
I know a guy you could hire to install it on the ceiling.
yeah,
you could look him up on Craigslist.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll be happy to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, for that kind of shit, there's a good learning. Don't use Craigslist, use TaskRabbit.
TaskRabbit, that's really good, Aaron.
Because then they're actually reviewed and rated, and like it's vetted to some degree. I mean, you're not going to get the most talented person, but you'll get someone that at least like did not get 50 1-star ratings. So
no, they're pretty good. Like I've gotten work done with TaskRabbit, this installation stuff, seamless.
Yeah.
So pain-free.
What I really wanted to do was hire someone to like set up my lighting perfectly and everything, and the camera.
So here's what you do. Okay, so John, this is not a TaskRabbit thing. This is something I investigated for a while before I said fuck it to cameras for all over. You reach out to the photo shops, photography shops.
Yeah.
Call them up and ask them, like, who are their lighting or photography experts. Those guys will literally come to your place for $60 an hour and help you with everything like this shit. You can tell them exactly what you want, and they'll tell you, okay, this is the kind of light you need, this is the kind of green screen you need, this is the kind of white screen you need, whatever you want. They can come over, you just pay them, but they're like photography experts.
Yeah.
Videography experts.
That's true. That's a good idea.
Like, what is
what I've got set up right now is actually pretty decent. I think like it's.
There's something about professional quality once you get those guys involved, and they can give you exactly like what you're talking with Sean Connell kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you want that, you need someone, like, even if you spend a few $100s, it's good for life. Like, you don't have to fuck around, rack your brain as to what is ideal, especially if this is going to become your main source of content for the next foreseeable few years.
That's true. Yeah. I did get I got I guess I can't really show it on screen, but I got a teleprompter Parrot. It's called like it's the
Mhm.
Parrot like Padcaster one.
Yep.
So it's the only problem with it is that, well, you got to put your phone there.
In
It's
it.
like a spring-loaded thing here, and that's kind of a pain. And then trying to like turn on the app in the phone.
Okay.
It's useful, but it's also
But it
like,
has a remote.
They're all in
well, you don't need the remote. Well, and the remote doesn't. The remote would be used to control the scrolling of the text, which you could
Mhm.
do, but the app I have actually detects your voice and then scrolls it automatically based on where you're at in the text. It uses voice recognition, so that actually works really well. I've been using that, but just the setup of initially trying to get the thing in there, like having a permanent, I don't know. Even if you had a so what I was thinking about was potentially buying an iPod Touch, putting
Yeah.
it permanently there, and then having a way to remote control the iPad Touch on my computer,
Yeah.
right? Because there's some software that you can, but I think you have to have it connect. I don't know if you can remotely control an iPad Touch through Wi-Fi. If you could, that's awesome, and it'd be because then you don't have to, move it. You can just like do all the stuff that you need to do right there. That would, so I'll have to potentially look into that. I mean, it's not a huge amount of friction, but it's a bit of a pain, and then you have the chance of like moving the camera and whatnot. But it's interesting. It's a lot of work to write the script out and then to read from the teleprompter. You don't get a lot of content for. I mean, you get very concise, which is good, right? But writing an entire script out, recording, reading that entire script is definitely a lot of work. And it is a little bit hard to read off the teleprompter without looking like you're reading off the teleprompter too. So,
I'm a little curious about your setup on that. Do you just record those with a webcam or
no,
Almost
this
90
camera,
minutes.
this camera? Is that like a DSLR or something?
it's a C100, so it's like a video camera,
Okay.
like a Canon
That would be my
C100.
help with
Okay.
So it's like it's the movie camera that actually a lot of movies were shot with a C100.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I see. I had to go look it up because I was trying to.
Bye-bye.
But what I do with it is I have a little box that
So it's a couple $1,000 camera.
yeah. I've got a little box that connects to the camera from the HDMI out, and then from there it's got a USB 3 that connects to my computer.
Yep, I have one of those.
And then it basically converts the signal as if it were a webcam. So so I'm using it right now as a webcam.
Right.
And then I use OBS to actually not just stream live, but to record the video itself.
Yep.
Because I can just hit record on there, and then I'm essentially like, instead of using an SD card on the camera. So
No, that makes sense. And then the other question I have, I guess, is how close or far away from the camera do you get? Because I don't have a lot of depth here in this. I mean, I could rotate, right? And then I could record this way and I'd have plenty of depth, but.
well, there's a sitting one here, right? This setup, and then there's a standing setup where I'd be back a little bit, but that is all dependent on the lens. Again, I've got a
that's true. You can
I've
set
got
your
a 50 like a 50
focus and
millimeter
zoom
lens.
Yeah, 50 millimeters, kind of the standard neutral lens.
Yeah.
Although actually on a DSLR, it's more like, if it's not a full frame camera, it's a 35 millimeter is the equivalent of a 50 millimeter on old fashioned cameras. So
yeah, this one's full frame.
okay,
So you got a little bit
50 millimeter. That's the most natural. It's not a telephoto. It's not wide angle.
Yeah.
It's just.
But how far back are you standing?
So I mean, not very far. Well, I wish I could get a little bit further back. Like you definitely need some depth. Well, and part of the benefit of it is like what I'm trying to achieve. Like when I'm close up, it works really well. Actually, to like frame in this shot, like this is fine. Like you don't have to be very. But if I want a body shot, then I need to be back a lot farther. But I have the f-stop on this. Like it's a pretty good 50 millimeter lens that has a high f-stop rating. So the idea behind that is like you basically have a depth of field, and so
Uh-huh.
if your f-stop goes high, you can have a short depth of field, which will make the background blurry.
Yeah.
Right? So that you only have a small focus window. I mean, there's pros and cons to it. One of them is that I have this little remote here that I have to manually control the focus. There's an autofocus on the camera, but it will constantly zoom in and out, and it makes noise. So
Right.
I basically manually focus the camera with this remote. Like if I'm up close, right, and then back, then I have to change the focus on that. So yeah, so a 50mm lens with a high f-stop, you need room behind you in order to get the full blurry effect of it. So when I'm standing up, I don't have enough room behind me, so that doesn't blur. But when I'm close to the camera, cropped in.
Yeah,
So,
for like a 3/4 length shot, you might need like
Okay.
10, 15 feet back.
Well, I'll just have to play with it. I don't have. I have a Canon camera, but I think that's a $1,200 camera. It's not a $2,000 or $3,000 camera. So.
you don't. I mean, honestly, like.
But I don't think I need one. And if I do a bunch of it, and then I'm like, you know what, I need to upgrade, then I'll upgrade. But
This is what I would do if I were you. If you're looking for new video equipment, like for camera for good, is just go to Think Media TV, Sean Cantrell's YouTube
Canal.
Canal. Why do I always want to call him Canal? Sean Canal's YouTube channel, and he reviews all the cameras, especially for YouTube. Like, look at his recent camera reviews. I think he's got a Sony. I think the two competing ones are like the Sony I can't remember. So there's a Sony one, and then there's a Canon one, and they're fairly small cameras, but they shoot 4K. They're the ones that most people are using for YouTube and vlogging, and they're around I think $800 to $1,200. And then you need a lens on it, and he's got all the recommendations for it. That's what I would do, rather than, like, you don't really need a C100. And honestly, like, those cameras might actually produce better quality now than the C100 does.
yeah. Well, I'm just going to use what I have. I mean, I have a pretty decent camera. I think it does 4K.
A DSLR will, like, any Canon EOS like DSLR is going to be like going to give you super good quality.
Yeah.
I'd have
And then you just use a boom mic to record.
Yeah, that's primarily. I mean, I was using this Rode one because I can bring it into the computer audio.
Right.
When I was close to the computer, but now I'm just trying to use the boom mic no matter what. If I'm standing, it was above my head, but now if I'm using the green screen, I'm just going to have it basically. In fact, I'm going to adjust this so that it's actually in frame, because so it'll get even closer to me, because with the green, it doesn't matter as long as I'm not touching it. Rodrigo can cut it out. So
right, yeah, and then I can just record it through OBS, so I don't need it to go into the audio in on the camera too.
The only thing with these boom mics, though, like I'm using the Rode Boom, is that it's an XLR. So you do need a camera that will take an XLR input. I think, though, like, because if you're looking at
I've got a couple of boom mics. I think mine's a Rode too, but I think it just has the 3.5mm.
Okay, because there might be, I'm sure there's a way to convert, like you'd need, because I think you need phantom power for it.
Yes.
In fact,
if it's XLR, you almost always do.
Yeah, so there's boxes that will provide the phantom power and then convert out to a 3.5mm or whatever what is it? Is it 3.5mm? I don't know, whatever the audio jack is. So
I need to jump off here, guys. I've got to take my kid to a school thing. So
okay,
Nope, sounds good.
we should probably wrap up and talk about. All right.
Anyway, good call.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like I have pretty much everything I need. I just need to get my stuff set up. So.
Yeah. All right. Should we jump into our thoughts for the?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Oh, Josh is gone.
Yeah, he had to bow out. I'll go first on thoughts. My main thought. So this week you'll notice I didn't ask should I or shouldn't I do this thing or that thing that's not in that central wheelhouse. Yeah, I've really been just focusing down and ratcheting down on the sales and the growth, basically. And those are my two things. And what I'm also looking at doing is getting my team more involved in at least the growth part of it, so that that stuff can ramp up on its own, and I can continue to just be focused on the sales and kind of the general direction of the company. And yeah, just buckling in on that one main thing, and just knocking it out of the park. Because what I'm figuring out is that if I focus on those things, then I can get in and I can start making the sponsorship sales. I can keep the ball rolling on some of these shows. I can ratchet a lot of this stuff up, and that growth vector is starting to become very apparent in the way that I should be going. And I'm almost done with Atomic Habits, and it was interesting too because I think I just read the last chapter, so I have like the conclusion and then like some of the other stuff at the end matter to read. But he talked about talking to a weightlifting coach that came to a gym that he was working out at, and he talked to him, and he basically said, what is it that makes these people great? And the coach talked a little bit about, well, they have a certain build, and they were put in certain circumstances where they were able to learn. He said, but the thing that really does it is that they show up and they do the boring workout every day. And I think that's the same idea out of Good to Great, right? Is that it's the people who you have to show up every day and keep that flywheel spinning. And a lot of times you're pushing the same grind you pushed yesterday. And so you have to keep showing up and doing the little things and setting up those habits and making sure that it's all getting done. And if you're doing that, then you can take it to where you need to go. And so that's kind of my thought on that, is just show up. And Good to Great kind of said that a lot of times it takes 3, 4, or 5 years to get to that great. And it's putting your nose to the grindstone every day and pushing the flywheel around and doing the same thing you did the other day. It doesn't mean you don't innovate, but what it does mean is that you're paying attention and being intentional about doing the things that keep the thing spinning up.
That's funny. Does that sound familiar, Manny? Just talking about this exact thing in the gym, right?
Dude, we've been talking about this thing across the board, the gym and business, right, and life in general.
Yeah, it's true.
Like,
then.
It's funny. Like, I'll give an example, and I'll just piggyback on what Chuck is saying here. Is that lately I've been more focused on the blog growth than the YouTube itself, and the only metric I'm usually looking at is the blog metric. I'm not looking at the YouTube metrics at all. And like, my favorite pastime these days is to look at the analytics and the search console and the email opt-ins coming from those blog posts. And what has happened as a result of it is, like, the more I look at those numbers, the more those numbers grow. And as crazy as it sounds, the reason behind that is that as you start analyzing those numbers, you find new little nuances. Every time you look at those numbers and every time you look at those analytics, you find another little nuance. And you find another little nuance. You find, like, oh, I could use exit intent pop-up. No. Well, you could actually use, 5-second pop-up. Or why is this 5-second pop-up working better than this other 5-second pop-up? What's the languaging in there that's changing that? And then you go and you look at, oh, how come this click-through rate is lower? What do I need to do here? And so on and so forth. It's almost to the point where it's endless, the modifications you can keep on making to grow the damn thing, to keep on improving the damn thing. But the assumption that somehow just doing all sorts of things will get you to that end goal is almost impossible, because you will never find those nuances that give you the little delta over time. And the daily delta is what adds up, not like one big giant, like, oh, and these are like hard-won battles in the sense, only because you kind of focus in on it is you find out all these little nuances. You don't, even if you take an SEO course and they mention all of these things, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because only when you're grinding it out and when you're looking at those numbers and you're finding those little details and you're working through them, that's when the real growth happens or the real learning and the application happens. Until then, it's just a knowledge pie in the sky kind of knowledge. So
Yep.
it's so much more about just keep on improving the damn thing. It's almost like no end to the amount of improvement you can do on the damn thing.
Yeah.
And the bigger challenge now for me is to, like to what Chuck was saying, is now say, okay, am I ready to like de-emphasize YouTube to the point where it's just blog all the way? And that's what we're talking about yesterday. Because de-emphasizing YouTube means de-emphasizing podcasts, means de-emphasizing Instagram visual content, de-Instagramming. So there's a lot of different things that come into play. Or should I just still go with the blog posts, or should still go with YouTube videos which convert into blog posts, which is what I've been doing so far, and it's working with 4 or 5 different pillars of marketing working without much effort. But I think I need to figure out a tighter flywheel than where I am today.
Well, the other thing is you can, you could hire somebody to, push some of those pieces of the flywheel for you, right? And
Which is what I'm doing.
yeah. So you could then do the YouTube videos, and then you have a team of people, or at least 1 or 2 other people that are converting it to all the other media, and you don't have to do that work. So then you can focus on the message, which is your flywheel, instead of the media, which is a couple of flywheels.
That's fair. That's a good analogy. And that's what I'm doing right now, actually. Like, in the sense, I don't do the writing at all.
Yeah.
Never do writing. I just do recording the audio, and my writers do the writing, and they are the ones who are responsible for doing the on-page SEO work and like all of that stuff. So they do all of that, even embedding all of that stuff is their work. My job is just to do the video. So in some ways, it is exactly that flywheel that we're talking about. But yeah, it's difficult to say that I should just leave all of those things on the table when all of them are working.
Yeah.
And
yeah, but at the same time, I've also seen it where, the 80-20 rule kicks in, and 2 of them are 80% and the other 2 are 20%. And so you cut back on those things that, they're working, and then you ramp up on the other things, and all of a sudden you're getting, 3 or 4 times the throughput because the other things are actually that much more effective.
Yeah. So then the question in some ways becomes, all right, should I just do I allow myself to just say my 80-20 is, or my focus is the mind map videos I create, and everything else is just systemized processes, and I don't worry about those things. I don't worry about growing the podcast. I don't worry about growing the YouTube channel. I only worry about growing the blog as the piece of, as a thing that I care about. Everything else flows from the piece of content I created.
Yeah, that's a little bit trickier. I mean, you still, you have to do the measuring and the thinking and the,
Yeah.
And the world doesn't sit still for you to figure it out either. So.
Well, yeah, exactly. So you keep doing shit, but I don't have an perfect answer on this front right now, because I feel like there is more focus to be had. I'm just not sure what I can personally do on that front, other than just recording the mind map videos and not doing anything else. Like systemizing, I basically systemize everything else. The videos don't need my attention. Once the audio is given, my employee just edits the audio, creates the podcast episode, creates the animation video. All of that stuff is done. So, and my employee will write the blog post and all of those things. So that way, all of those things are taken care of. But I think maybe another 1 or 2 months of systemization will streamline all the way to the end, where I never even have to think about any of those, other than just this video I create, and the team takes care of everything else. All the different social media marketing campaigns and all of that stuff is not my responsibility.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I mean, it's you can either go that road or you can just cut out the other stuff and then just focus on the
Yeah.
one. And I don't know. I mean, if even though theoretically to just cut out everything else and focus on the one thing makes the most sense, if I were you, I would probably do what you're saying and just systemize everything. And
Yeah, because
Well,
in some
that's-
ways I'm focusing back on what Mike Michalowicz calls the queen bee role,
yeah,
Yes.
like just doing that and let everyone else do everything else. And this is what I'm good at. This is what I do.
yeah,
You guys do the remaining, and that's my flywheel.
yeah.
Yep.
That's
This is
true.
the only flywheel I focus on. Everything else is just a waste of my time.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I'll throw out at you is that in a lot of ways I've done this over and over again with DevChat. So there are things that are not necessarily in the 80, but they're automated to the point, and the cost to have them done is minimal enough to where I just let them go, and then I let them continue to run as they're running right now, and then I just focus on the other thing. And so my sole focus is on SEO or on finding hosts or on sponsorship for a while or for a couple of days. And that, you kind of play that game. And so you're not dropping the other stuff, but you're making it okay for it to continue to go the way that it's going.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Like, would you drop any of that if you're really not actively involved with it?
Well, I can't be actively involved in everything anyway. So
Yeah. So if you already have people doing that work for you, then dropping it wouldn't really, because you've already created the systems for them. You've deployed the systems for systemizing the business. So why would you let it go now?
I guess you
Yeah.
drop it when its contribution to the revenue is so small that it's a no-brainer to drop it. Because like
yeah,
you go down this road and you're focusing more on the blog, and you grow the blog to the point where the traffic you get from the blog is 100 times the traffic you're getting from YouTube, then it'll be very clear that like there's no point doing YouTube videos or there's no point doing podcasts, because it's a drop in the bucket. And so
well, and what it really comes down to in a lot of ways is you have the right people on the bus and you figure out that there's a better seat for them to sit in. And so then that other thing gets dropped, right? Because it's not because, well, this is way more effective than this. It's, I have this resource over here that has its time taken up by a 20 instead of an 80.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the energy bus.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so mine, I've got a few different ones. They kind of all come down to the same piece, but they intersect, which is basically what it comes down to is this, is that make long-term decisions based on favorable outcomes, right? On the most favorable outcomes. So there's also a contradictory thought, which is to make long-term decisions based on the least favorable outcomes. Really, what it comes down to is taking both those into consideration, and basically putting yourself in a situation where you have unbounded upside. So what I mean by this, so here's a good example of this, is that I have a coaching client that is negotiating a book deal, right? And I was helping him to negotiate the book deal. And he was trying to like figure out how he can get more money percentage wise on like the first 10,000 copies of the book sold and that. And I was like, don't even focus on that. Like, just make it so that instead what you want to do is, if you sell a large number of copies of the book, then you're going to make the most money, right? Because that's where like, you're limited in scope. If you, whatever, like, so let's say that you get 10% royalty on the first 10,000 copies of the book, but you negotiate it to 12%. Okay. So that's a fixed finite amount, right? Because you're talking about the difference between, let's say that if you sold 10,000 copies and you made $2 per copy, $20,000 versus making $24,000. Okay, so that's not, in fact, actually my math is wrong, but what is it like if you go from a 10% royalty to 12%? So, I mean, you're talking about a 2% difference in the amount of money that you make, right? So
yeah, but the 2% is actually 20% of the royalty that you would have been getting otherwise. 2%, 2% of
Right,
10% is
yeah, it's 2%. So I was right in the first.
yeah.
Right, it would be $24,000. So
Yeah.
it's worth $4,000 because 4,000 is 20% of. Yeah, okay, my initial math was right. Okay, so anyway, what you're doing is you're negotiating over $4,000, theoretical, right? You might not even sell 10,000 books, right? So if you don't sell 10,000 books, then it doesn't even matter, right? But instead, if you negotiate to say, well, if we sell over 25,000 books, I want 25% royalty instead of 20%. That's the better negotiation. Like, let them have the 10% at the, you see what I'm saying? Because if you sell 200,000 books, right, or 100,000 books, having that deal in place is way more valuable, right? It's going to make you a lot more money, right? So it's the same thing with equity position, right? So like when I relate this back to like my simple programmer, you know, with Josh, like one of the things I was thinking about when I was growing the business and bringing Josh on was I didn't think about the, like, if we're extremely successful, right? Or the success part. Like I didn't optimize that interaction, that deal for the higher level of success, right? Because if I had done that, then I would have said, well, you know what? Let's say that we turn this into a $10 million business. Okay. It will cost me a huge amount. It'll cost me a ridiculous amount of money, right? That I could have made in doing that, right? Then paying Josh more up front, right? You know, again, you know, you could take Josh out of the equation. I'm just saying in general, right? As a business owner, you should think about these things for the long term, right? Before you give away equity, right? That's what it kind of boils down to. Is like when you're making an equity decision, you can make it for the short term or you can make it for the long term, right? And if you think about it for the long term and for the best case scenario, then if you can do anything else besides give away equity, it's smart to do, right? Because you want to win, you want to swing big, and you want to succeed when you swing big. You want to get the bigger chunk of that. So that's what it I think comes down to is thinking about things in terms of, if you win, how will you win big, right? So I'd rather outlay more money initially, and if I don't, you know, because what we're looking to do is swing for the fences, right? In the things that we're doing, business ventures, right? And so it's okay to spend more money initial, right? To make it so that if you do win, you win bigger. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. So if you win bigly.
Yes, if you win bigly.
No,
And
I
if
like
you
it.
lose,
I like the
you control your downside.
Right, exactly. Your downside is fixed, right? It's not unbounded. So, all right, guys. See you next week.
All right. See you later.
That's the plan.